Managing sudo access. System administrators can grant sudo access to allow non-root users to execute administrative commands that are normally reserved for the root user. So, sudo access is provided to non-root users so that they can execute the commands reserved only for the root users. User authorizations in sudoers. The /etc/sudoers file and by default drop-in files in the /etc/sudoers.d directory specify which users can use the sudo command to execute commands as other user. So /etc/sudoers file and by default drop-in files in the etc/sudoers.d directory. So either this file, etc/sudoers file, or the files in the etc/sudoers.d directory specify which users can use the sudo command to execute commands as other user. Which users can use the sudo command to execute commands as other user. The rules can apply to individual users and user groups. So it can be applied to individual users and user groups. We can also define rules for groups of hosts, commands, and even users more easily by using aliases. You can also define rules for groups of hosts. So groups of hosts, commands, and even users more easily by using aliases. When the user enters a command with sudo for which the user does not have authorization, the system records a message that contains the string username : user not in sudoers to the journal log. When the user enters a command with sudo for which the user does not have authorization, the system records a message that contains the string username : user not in sudoers to the journal log. The default /etc/sudoers file information and examples of authorizations. Provides information and examples of authorizations. You can activate a specific example rule by uncommenting the corresponding line. The section with user authorizations is marked with the following introduction. You can activate a specific example rule by uncommenting the corresponding line. So this file contains several examples of authorizations. You can activate a specific example rule by uncommenting the corresponding line. The section with user authorizations is marked with the following introduction. User authorizations -- next comes the main part : which users can run what software on which machines. The sudoers file can be shared between multiple systems. cat/etc/pass wd pipe grep-i red hat 1. So I'll switch user to root account. So I change directory to /etc/sudoers.d directory. Here there are no files. I will check the sudoers file. cat/etc/sudoers. So this is the sudoers file. It contains examples of authorizations. I'm opening this file. To open the file, I have to use a special command called vsudo. Vsudo will automatically open the /etc/sudoers file. Sudoers allows particular users to run various commands as the root user without needing the root password. Examples are provided at the bottom of the file for collections of related commands which can then be delegated out to particular users or groups. This file can be edited with the vsudo command. Host aliases. Groups of machines. You may prefer to use host names, perhaps using wildcards for entire domains or IP addresses instead. Host underscore alias file servers is equal to fs1 comma fs2. Host underscore alias mail servers is equal to smtp comma smtp2. User aliases. These are not often necessary as you can use regular groups, that is from files, LDAP, NIS, etc. in this file. Just use percentage group name rather than user alias. User underscore alias admins is equal to jsmith comma mychem admins. Command aliases. These are groups of related commands. So host alias, user alias, command alias, networking, cmd underscore alias. Networking is equal to slash spin slash root comma. Each command is separated by comma slash spin slash itconfig slash bin slash ping slash spin slash th client slash usr slash bin slash net slash spin slash ip tables slash usr slash bin slash rfcom slash usr slash bin slash wvdil slash spin slash iwconfig slash spin slash mia hyphen tool. Installation and management of software. cmd underscore alias software is equal to slash spin slash rpm slash usr slash bin slash up to date slash usr slash bin slash m. Services. cmd underscore alias services is equal to slash spin slash service slash spin slash chk config slash usr slash bin slash systemctl space start comma slash usr slash spin slash systemctl space stop comma slash usr slash spin slash usr slash bin slash systemctl space reload comma slash usr slash bin slash systemctl space restart comma slash usr slash bin slash systemctl space status comma slash usr slash bin slash systemctl enable comma slash usr slash bin slash systemctl disable. Updating the local database. cmd underscore alias locate is equal to usr spin up to update db slash usr slash bin slash update db. Storage. cmd underscore alias storage is equal to slash spin slash fdisk slash spin slash sfdisk slash spin slash parted slash spin slash part probe slash bin slash u mount. Delegating permission. cmd underscore alias delegating is equal to slash usr slash spin slash sudo slash bin slash chown slash spin slash chmod slash slash bin slash chgrp. Processes. cmd underscore processes is equal to slash bin slash nice slash bin slash kill slash usr slash bin slash kill slash usr slash bin slash kill all. Drivers. cmd underscore alias drivers is equal to slash bin slash mod probe. Default specification. Refuse to run if unable to disable echo on the TTY. Defaults exclamation visible PW. Refuse to run if you unable to disable echo on the TTY. Preserving home has security implications in many programs use it when searching for configuration files. Note that home is already set when the env underscore reset option is enabled. So this option is only effective for configurations where either env underscore reset is disabled or home is present in the env underscore key place. Defaults always underscore set underscore home. Defaults match underscore group by group ID separated by underscores. Prior to version 1.8.15, groups listed in sudoers that were not found in the system group database were passed to the group plugin, if any. Starting with 1.8.15, only groups of the form %:group are resolved via the group plugin by default. We enable always underscore query underscore group underscore plugin to restore old behavior. Disable this option for new behavior. Defaults always query group plugin. Default cnv underscore reset here. Default cnv underscore keep is equal to the double quotes. Colors, display, host name, this size, KDE, DIR, LS underscore colors. Default cnv underscore keep with plus is equal to a double quote. Mail PS1, PS2, QTDIR. lang lc underscore address lc underscore c type default env underscore key plus is equal to lc underscore collate lc underscore identification lc underscore measurement lc underscore messages lc underscore monetary lc underscore name lc underscore numeric lc underscore paper lc underscore telephone lc underscore time lc underscore all else language linguas underscore xkb underscore charset x authority. Adding home to env underscore keep may enable a user to run unrestricted commands via sudo. Adding home to env underscore keep may enable user to run unrestricted commands via sudo. Default env underscore keep plus is equal to double quote home. Default secure underscore path is equal to slash sbin colon slash bin colon slash usr slash sbin colon slash usr slash bin. Next comes the main part, which users can run what software on which machines. So this is what we saw in the theory. Next comes the main part, which users can run what software on which machines. The sudo file can be shared between multiple system syntax. User machine is equal to commands. User machine is equal to commands. The command section may have other options added to it. Allow root to run any commands anywhere. So allow root user to run any command anywhere. So it is of this form. You can create new sudoers authorizations and modify existing authorizations by using the following format. Allow root user to run any command here. These are the commands in the end. Anywhere means hosts as any user or group. As any user or group. So allow root user to run any command anywhere and as any user or group. As any user or group. Allow members of the sys group to run networking, software, service management apps and more. Allow members of the sys group percentage sys all is equal to run networking. So these are all aliases: networking, software, service management, apps and more, storage, delegating processes, locate drivers. So, user. So this is the sys group. It can run on all hosts. On all hosts, it can run all these commands. Sys group can run on all hosts all these commands. So the first one is the user. This one, the second field is the hosts, list of hosts. The third field is the user or group. And the fourth field is the commands. All allow people in group field to run all commands. Allow people in wheel group percentage wheel. So all the hosts, all means all the hosts as any user or group, all users and group, and to run all commands. All commands. Same thing without a password. So how to same thing without a password. Percentage wheel. All is equal to in parenthesis all. This is the host. This is user or group. This is no password colon all. Without password, all the commands can be used. Allow members of the users group to mount and unmount the CD-ROM as root. So percentage users all is equal to slash sbin slash mount slash mnt slash CD-ROM comma slash spin slash u mount slash mnt slash cd-rom. Mount the cd-rom and unmount the cd-rom. Allow members of the users group to shut the system. Percentage users localhost is equal to slash spin slash shutdown hyphen h now. So only on the localhost means the same system, the users can this users group can shut down the system, can run this command shutdown slash spin slash shutdown hyphen h space now. So mount spin mount mnt cd-rom spin u mount mnt cd-rom to mount and unmount the cd-rom as root. Read drop-in files from etc sudoers.d. The hash here does not mean a comment. Hash include d slash etc slash sudoers.d. So only in this case hash include dir. Hash means here this is not a comment. Only in the other cases it is a comment. In this case it is not a comment. Include dir slash etc slash sudoers.d directory. To exit the file use :q exclamation. Username hostname.example.com is equal to run as user run as group path to command. Username is the user that enters the command, for example user1. If the value starts with percentage, it defines a group, for example percentage group1. Hostname.example.com is the name of the host on which the rule applies. The section run as user run as group defines the user or group as which the command is executed. If you omit this section, username can execute the command as root. Okay, so here is the catch. If you don't want the user to run as root, if you want the user to run as some other user or some other group, then you can specify here run as user and run as group. If this section is omitted, then the username can execute command as root. Part to command is the complete absolute part to the command. You can also limit the user to only performing command with specific options and arguments by adding these options after the command path. If you do not specify any options, the user can use the command with all options. You can apply the rule to all users, hosts, or commands by replacing any of these variables with all. By using all in some or multiple segments of a rule can cause serious security risks. You can negate the arguments by using exclamation operator. For example, exclamation root specifies all users except root. Note that allowing specific users, groups, and commands is more secure than disallowing specific users, groups, and commands. This is because allow rules also block new unauthorized users or groups. Warning: avoid using negative rules for commands because users can overcome such rules by renaming commands with the alias command. The system reads set ctc slash sudoers file from beginning to end. Therefore, if the file contains multiple entries for user, the entries are applied in order. In case of conflicting value, the system uses the last match even if it is not the most specific match. To preserve the rules during system updates and for easier fixing of errors, enter new rules by creating new files in the slash etc slash sudoers.d directory instead of entering rules directly in the slash etc slash sudoers file. The system reads the files in the slash etc slash sudoers.d directory when it reaches the following line in the slash etc slash sudoers file hash include slash etc slash sudoers.d. Note that the number sign hash at the beginning of this line is part of the syntax and does not mean the line is a comment. The name of the files in the directory must not contain a period and must not end with a tilde. The names of files in the directory must not contain a period and must not end with a tilde. Sudo by man page additional resources. Adding a sudo rule to allow members of a group to execute commands as root. System administrators can allow non-root users to execute administrative commands by granting them sudo access. The sudo command provides users with administrative access without using the password of the root user. When users need to perform an administrative command, they can precede that command with sudo. If the user has authorization for the command is executed. Be aware of the following limitations. Only users listed in the sudoers configuration file can use the sudo command. The command is executed in the shell of the user, not in the root shell. The command is executed in the shell of the user, not in the root shell. However, there are some exceptions, such as when full sudo privileges are granted to any user. In such cases, users can switch to and run the commands in the root shell. Sudo-i, sudo su-. So this will run the commands in the root shell. If you use sudo with commands, it will run the sudo command in the shell of the user, not in the root shell. If you use some exceptions, such as when full sudo privileges are granted, for example, sudo-i and sudo su-, this will run the commands in the root shell. Prerequisite: you have root access to the system. As root, open the etc sudoers file. Use the vsudo command. The /etc/sudoers file defines the policies applied by the sudo command. The /etc/sudoers file find the lines that grant sudo access to users in the administrative wheel group. Allow people in group wheel to run all commands. Percentage wheel all is equal to parenthesis all space all. So this is the host. This is the user or root. User or group. As what user or what which group. This is the commands. This is the group name followed by percentage. Preceded by percentage. Make sure that the line starts with percentage wheel is not commented out with the number sign hash. Save any changes and exit the editor. Add users you want to grant sudo access into the administrative wheel group. User mod -append capital G wheel in angular bracket username. So user mod, modify the user, append the user to the group wheel, append user to the group wheel group. Replace username with the name of the user. Verification, login as a member of the wheel group and run sudo who am I, it says root. Let us do these practicals. As root to open the etc sudo. So vsudo, I'll search for /wheel. So found the wheel group. It is uncommented already. Percentage wheel all is equal to in parenthesis all space all. So save and exit this file. :wq to save and exit the file. Add users you want to grant sudo access into the administrative wheel group. So I want to add user redat1 to the wheel group. Before this, I will check whether uh, I will use. Okay, I will add first. I will add redat1 to the wheel group. User mod -append capital G username. Okay, user mod -append capital G username. So user mod append to the group. First I have to append to the group name. Group name is wheel and the name of the user name is, I will give redat1. So user mod command is used to append a user, modify the privileges of the user. I am adding the user redat1 to the group wheel. So user mod -append to the group wheel the user redat1, append to the group wheel the user redat1. User mod -append capital G wheel redat1, append to the group wheel redat1. So I've appended the user redat1 to the group wheel. If I type groups redat1, it will show redat1 and wheel as the groups of this of the user redat1. So the groups of redat1 are now redat1 and wheel. Redat1 and wheel both are the groups of redat1. Now redat1 belongs to redat1 and also the wheel group. Wheel group cat slash etc slash groups pipe grep hyphen I, the wheel group slash etc slash group 5, not groups, group 5. So here in the group file I want to search for the group wheel. So group wheel as a member now. Group wheel, this is the ID of the group wheel. It has a member. Redat1 is a member of the group wheel. Redat1 is a member of the group wheel now. Slash etc slash group 5 grep hyphen I wheel. So Redat1 is a member of the wheel group. So user mod hyphen hyphen append hyphen capital G wheel username. Log in as a member of the wheel group and run sudo who am I. So now I will log in as user, log in as Redat when I try this command sudo who am I. So switch user to Redat1 sudo who am I. So I'm using sudo here. Sudo who am I. Here I need to provide the password of Redat1. So it says I am root. If I just type who am I, it says Redat1. So if I simply use without sudo, it says I am Redat1. If I use sudo with who am I, it says I am root user. So this is the difference. So additional resources sudo 8-man page, sudo is 5th-man page, vsudo 8-man page. So man sudo command will give me more information about the sudo command. Q to exit this command. If I want to man hyphen hyphen help, so this is the 8th-man page, man 8 sudo. So 8th-man page for sudo's file will give me more information about sudo. So I want man 5 sudo. So no manual entry for sudo in section 5. So this is the 8th section of the man page where I get more information about sudo. Similarly for sudoers. For sudoers it is the 5th man page. Man 5 sudoers. So more information about the sudoers file here. Sudoers command. And similarly for the vsudo 8th man page. Vsudo. So use spacebar to go to the next page from scroll the pages and Q to exit the map page. Enabling unprivileged users to run certain commands. As an administrator, you can allow unprivileged users to enter certain commands on specific workstations by configuring a policy in the /etc sudoers.d directory. As an administrator, you can allow unprivileged users to enter certain commands on specific workstations by configuring a policy in the /etc sudoers.d directory. This is more secure than granting full sudo access to a user or giving someone the root password for the following reasons. More granular control over privileged actions. You can allow a user to perform certain actions on specific hosts instead of giving them full administrative access. You can allow a user to perform certain actions on specific instead of giving them full administrative access. Better logging. When a user performs an action through sudo, the action is logged with their username and not just root. Better logging. When a user performs an action through sudo, the action is logged with their username and not just root. Transparent control. You can set email notifications for every time the user attempts to use sudo privileges. So you can set email notifications for every time the user attempts to use sudo privileges. Prerequisites: you have root access to the system. Create a new file in the /etc/sudoers.d directory. vsudo-f/etc/sudoers.d file name. So vsudo. So first switch user to root. Su space hyphen. Give the password of the root account and then vsudo -f /etc sudoers.d slash. So file name, I will give the file name as sudo1. Enter. So this will open the editor. Enter. Press I to get into the insert mode, and here you type the username, host name, and run as user or run as group, and path to the command. Path to the command. So add the following lines to the etc sudoers.d slash file name file. Replace username with the name of the user. Replace hostname.example.com with the URL of the host. Replace run as user run as group with user or group as to which the command can be executed. If you omit this section, username can execute the command as root with the user or group as to which the command can be executed. Replace part to command with the complete absolute part to the command. You can also limit the user to only performing a command with specific options and arguments by adding those options after the command path. If we do not specify any options, the user can use the command with all options. To allow two or more commands on the same host on one line, you can list them separated by a comma followed by a space. For example, to allow user 1 to execute the DNF and reboot commands on host1.example.com, enter. So to allow two or more commands on the same host on one line, you can list them separated by a comma followed by a space. Separated by a comma followed by a space. So comma followed by a space. For example, to allow user 1 to execute DNF and reboot commands on host1.example.com, enter. User1 host1.example.com is equal to /spin/dnf comma /spin/root. Optional: to receive email notifications every time a user attempts to use sudo privileges, add the following lines to the file: defaults mail underscore always, defaults mail2 is equal to double quote email @example.com close double quote. Save the changes and exit the editor. So let us do this practical. So I've created the sudo1 file. In the sudo1 file, I want to give privileges to the Red Hat 1 user. Red Hat 1 user. So Red Hat 1 user Red Hat 1. On the local host, we can execute /bin/dnf comma space /sbin/reboot /sbin/reboot escape colon. Okay, now Red Hat 1 will be able to shut down the system. Red Hat 1 will be able to shut down the system. So cat /etc/sudoers dot d slash sudo 1. So red hat 1 on the local host. Host name of this host name of this server is localhost dot local domain. On localhost dot local domain, let me enter local domain also here. That is example.com. Just like the example.com. History. So vsudo -f slash etc slash sudoers.d slash sudo 1. Here I will enter localhost dot local domain is equal to slash bin slash dnf comma space slash sbin slash reboot. Now switch user to Red Hat 1. First I will switch user to Red Hat. When user Red Hat is able to execute the reboot command, so I have login as Red Hat Linux. Click on activities and open the terminal. Your control plus to increase the font size. Even Red Hat user is able to execute the reboot command. So similarly, Red Hat 1 also will be able to execute. So let me try some other command which only root can execute. Switch user to Red Hat 1. So let me try fdisk command. Fdisk -help. So I used fdisk with -l command, -l option. It says permission denied. Cannot open these things, these devices. It says permission denied as Red Hat 1. So I'll exit Red Hat 1. Now I'm in the root account. Now I'll use vsudo -f slash etc slash sudoers.d slash sudo 1. Here I will add another command. So I want the path of the fdisk command. For that I can type ::, which fdisk. So path of the fdisk command is usr spin fdisk. So here I enter into insert mode, comma space slash usr slash spin slash fdisk, : which fdisk. USR spin fdisk. Okay, USR spin fdisk. Now exit, save and exit this file. Now switch user to Red Hat 1. Now use fdisk with -l option. So not able to use fdisk with -l. If I use fdisk with sudo command, same thing. If you use fdisk with sudo fdisk -l and give the password, so I will be able to list the devices. /dev slash nvme 0n1p1 boot boot. So this is the boot device. Boot partition. Starting cylinder size, ending cylinder size, sector size is 300 MB. ID 83, type is Linux. Slash div slash NVMe NVMe 0N1P2P3. Starting cylinder size. See, after 47 it starts from 48 up to 4810751. Sectors 4194304. Size is 2 GB. 82 is the ID type. 82 means Linux, Swap or Solaris. Linux, Swap or Solaris. ID type. ID 83 means it is a Linux partition. 82 means it's a Linux, Swap or Solaris partition. Slash div slash NV ME01N01 0N1P3. Starting cylinder size after 52, 53 and 39. Sector 17.7 gigabytes. So 83 ID type Linux. So type is Linux. So if when I used fdisk with -l command, I am able to use it. Fdisk with -l with the sudo command. With sudo command, I am able to use the fdisk command. Without sudo, if I use fdisk -l, I will not be able to list any of the partitions. List any of the partitions. Sudo fdisk fdisk help. So what is -l option? Displays partitions and exit. Displays partitions and exit. So now Red Hat one is able to use fdisk command with the sudo privilege. Sudo command sudo fdisk-l. So is able to Red Hat one is able to use the fdisk command. Suppose I want to remove the privilege from Red Hat one, I can use vsudo -f slash etc slash sudoers.d slash sudo 1. Suppose I comment this line with a hash and switch user to Red Hat 1. So Red Hat 1 will not be able to use the fdisk command. Sudo fdisk-l. Still is able to use it. The sudo command. Exit vsudo -f slash etc slash sudo 1. I put a double comment here. Switch user to Red Hat 1. Sudo fdisk-l. Still able to use it. Exit the terminal. So let us try as Red Hat user. Will Red Hat be able to also do the same? fdisk-l. Sudo fdisk-l. So Red Hat is not in a sudoers file. Okay, so it's giving me an error message. I switch user to Red Hat 1. Sudo fdisk-l. It's able to list. So I log in as root. vsudo -f slash etc slash sudoers .d slash sudo 1 file and remove this line. Cat etc sudoers dot d slash sudo 1. The style file is still present. Sudo slash etc slash sudo, or I will remove this file. rm slash etc sudo 1. Alright, redat 1. Now sudo fdisk-l. I don't know how this is happening. It is taking the sudo command. Exit. Same thing if I try with redat 1, it is not working. Say sudo fdisk-l. Okay, why this is working? Why this is working? Because redat 1 is a member of the wheel group. So groups. Redat 1 is a member of the wheel group, and wheel group has admin privileges. Wheel group has admin privileges. So su space hyphen, then vsudo. Suppose I comment the wheel group percentage wheel slash percentage wheel. Now I will comment this wheel group. I commented this wheel group. Now I switch user to redat 1. In redat 1 I will try to execute sudo fdisk-l. See, it says now redat 1 is not in the sudoers file. The incident will be reported. Redat 1, though it is member of the wheel group, but wheel group doesn't have is not in the sudoers file. So now redat 1 cannot execute fdisk command. So this is the difference. I'll switch back to and root user. I will uncomment the wheel group percentage backslash percentage wheel forward slash percentage wheel. Okay, here I'm uncommenting the wheel group. Uncommented the wheel group. Now I switch user to redat 1. In the redat 1 I tried sudo fdisk-l. Now I'm able to do it. Okay, now exit this. In the sudoers file I will comment the wheel group slash percentage wheel. I'll comment the wheel group. So and then I will add a file vsudo-f slash etc slash sudoers.d slash sudo 1. Here I will add redat 1 localhost dot local domain is equal to space slash bin slash dnf comma space slash usr slash spin slash fdisk. Save and exit this command. Save and exit this file. Now sudo switch user to redat 1. Now try to use sudo fdisk-l. I'm able to use it. Though the wheel group is commented, now I'm able to execute the fdisk command as redat 1 because there is a file in the sudoers file. It is sudoers.d directory. There is a file called sudo 1. In that I mentioned the user redat 1 with privileges to execute the command fdisk. Okay. Suppose I try some other command which is not in the sudoers file. It says user redat 1 is not allowed to execute slash sbin slash parted as root on localhost dot local domain. Okay, so redat 1 will not be able to execute the slash sbin slash parted command as because he is not in the sudoers file. It's not in the sudoers file. Suppose I want to give permission to this one also. Exit vsudo -f /etc/sudoers.d /sudo1. Here at the end of the file, I will add. I want to add the parted command. For that, I will use colon exclamation. I want to know the path of the parted command. Colon exclamation which parted /usr/sbin/parted. So this is the path /usr/sbin/parted. Press enter. Here space. First enter into insert mode space /usr/sbin/parted. I'll check one more time. Colon exclamation which parted /usr/sbin/parted. So added the parted command also. Now sudo switch user to Red Hat 1. Red Hat 1 will be able to use the parted command of the sudo parted. Simply if I use parted, it will not work. The sudo parted. So now I am able to use the parted command. To list all the commands, use the help command. So mk part, partition type, file system type, start, end, mk label, mk table. So print. Here when I type print, here I will get the list of all the devices. I will get the list of all the devices. So if I type print, model is NVMe device. Disk is /save/NVMe 0N1 25.5 GB. Sector size 512 or 512 bytes. Logical or physical partition table is MS-DOS. Disk flags number 123 and the type is size primary, and the file system XFS, Linux-swap and XFS. So this is the boot partition. First one is the boot partition. Print command. Help. How to quit this parted command? Quit. Quit command to quit. Exit. So this is how I can use the sudoers file. To receive email notifications every time a user attempts to use sudo privileges, add the following lines to the file. So suppose I want to get email notifications every time any user who is in the sudoers file executes the sudo command, then I have to use this, add these lines to the sudoers file. Defaults mail underscore always, defaults mail to, and the mail and the email ID, FQDN, sorry, email ID, that is the email name at the rate the domain name, email name and then email and the domain name, username and then domain name. Okay, let me try this. vsudo -f vsudo, just I will execute this in the etc sudoers file. So at the end of the file, how to go to the end of the file? Capital G. If I type capital G, will go to the end of the file. To open a new line, use small o. So it will open a new line in the VA editor. add these lines. Defaults is equal to defaults default space mail underscore always default space mail underscore always default space mail underscore always, and then defaults space mail to is equal to in double quote root at the rate localhost dot local domain in double quote root at the rate localhost dot local domain. So mail to root at the rate localhost dot local domain. It saves the changes and exit the editor. So defaults mail underscore always defaults mail to root at the rate localhost dot local domain colon w2 save and exit. So how to check the mail of the root? To get the IP address, type config IP address of this server. So this is the IP address of the server 192.168.220.129. Now from my Windows machine using SFTP protocol I am connecting to the Linux server which I installed in VMware. So I need to provide the host name which is nothing but the IP address. So here I give the IP address. So this is the IP address of the Red Hat server in VMware. So here in the command prompt I will try to ping this IP address. Ping this machine. So I'm able to connect to this machine. I'm getting a response from the Linux server which is installed in VMware. So I'm able to get response from the server. So I will connect to the server now with username and password. So I'm connecting as root user. Accept. So now I'm connected as root user. Now here I will copy the files which I downloaded from Windows server to this server. Windows machine from my local laptop to this Linux server. I want to copy the RHL 8.5 DVD ISO to the Red Hat server. So copying files to the Linux machine. So I copied the red RHEL 8.5 x86 underscore 64 dbd.iso file and RHEL 9.5 x86 underscore 64 boot.iso file to the Red Hat server from my Windows server, which I downloaded from internet. So this is how I can transfer files between Windows and Linux machines using WinSCP. So updated the etc sudoers file. Suppose I want to receive emails for all the activities of the users. Suppose any user uses the sudo file and I want to get that information. I need to add two lines to the etc sudoers file. I want an email for all the activities of the user with the sudo command. I go to the end of the file. At the end of the file, I mention these lines. So here I mention default space mail underscore always and default space mail to in double quote is equal to double quote root at the rate localhost dot local domain close double quote save and exit this file. You can now updated the etc sudoers file. So with default space mail underscore always default space mail 2 is equal to root at the rate localhost dot local domain. I use the mail command. There is no mail for root. I switch user as Red Hat user. So before this, we sudo -f slash. Let me check the sudoers.d directory. Do I have any file here? I have a file called sudo1. So in sudo1, I've given privilege to Red Hat user to use the command fdisk. So if he uses command fdisk, I should get an email. So switch user to Red Hat. So sudo, if he simply uses fdisk, I don't get any email. Fdisk, say if you use sudo fdisk, fdisk -l, exit this, exit the user account and now type mail. See there are two mails now. There are two mails from Red Hat user because Red Hat user used the sudo command. So there are two mails for the root user from Red Hat. So you has used the user spin fdisk from the home directory /home/Red Hat. This is the timing localhost.local domain. So from this home directory, use the command /spin/fdisk. I can use the second command also. Second one also. I can use check the second mail also. So second time you used spin fdisk -l. First time you used spin fdisk. Second time you used spin fdisk -l. So that is the difference. Q to quit the mail command. So how do you get mail? Mail. Type mail command to see the mails for the root user and type the number here. One for to see the first email and type to see the second email and Q to quit the email. Q to quit the mail utility.